Hello, everyone. I'm going to allow a few more moments for people to come in and get settled. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I hope everyone's doing all right tonight, feeling good. My name is Michaela. I'm the events coordinator here at Sankofa. Welcome to our virtual event space. This event is being recorded. So if you would like your face to be recorded, you can keep your video on, but we do ask that your audio remains off the entire time. We are going to have a Q&A at the end of the event, and I will moderate that. So we're going to have the chat reserved just for that, and that'll be around 8 o'clock. So everyone's welcome to have a question there, and I'll make sure that it gets answered. So let's get into our event. Today we have the pleasure of presenting Ntozake Shange's Dance We Do, A Poet Explores Black Dance. We're going to be getting into the book with Renee and the fellow dancers of the book. Renee is the afterword writer, and she was also assistant to Ntozake Shange. And we're lucky to have many of the dancers that are featured in the book here today. Ntozake Shange, as we know, was a very prolific writer and dancer, and she had many layers, and I look forward to hearing the many layers that other people got to experience with her. Dance We Do can be purchased at sankofa.com or at our brick and mortar store at 2714 Georgia Avenue Northwest. Renee Charlow will be moderating this event and moderating the conversation between the dancers. So let's learn a little bit about Renee. Renee Charlow was personal assistant to Ntozake Shange from 2014 to 2018. She is an actor, director, writer, and theater professor. That's super impressive. She served as associate producer and assistant director for the production of Shange's Lost in Language and Sound at Karamu House, Cleveland, Ohio, and directed For Color Girls Who Have Considered Suicide When the Rainbow Is Enough at Virginia Commonwealth University and Bowie State University. All right, so without further ado, Renee, can you turn your camera on and we can get started? Welcome again, everyone. Thank you so much, Renee, for being here.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, Michaela. I'm honored and humbled to be a part of this important event. But first, I want to thank Sankofa. I want to thank Beacon Press. I want to thank the Shange and Williams family. I want to thank Mr. Don Sutton is their manager. And I want to thank my family and my friends for their support. And I also want to thank all of the dancers profiled and mentioned in Dance We Do for following through as we work through and we work together to bring this project to life. This was a labor of love for me. As Michaela said, I was Ntozake's personal assistant and friend from 2014 to 2018. I traveled with her and I went to a lot of places, and everywhere we went, she was always welcomed and honored to be there. I met her backstage at an event in New York City that was sponsored by Eric McCall Macmillan and Project One Voice, where he honored the anniversary of For Colored Girls. Afterward, the family needed someone to assist and travel with her. And that's how we began our journey. And it was a lovely journey. It was an honor to work with her and to be her friend. And she had begun working on Dance We Do before we met, and I was able to help her bring it to fruition. So let me introduce our esteemed panel. Mickey Davidson is a dancer, choreographer. Her dance career has been the study and performance of African-American historical dance styles, and including working with Sounds in Motion Dance Company, Sun Ra, Jean Lee, Charles Cookie Cook, Harriet Quicksand Brown, Frankie Manning, Norma Miller, just to name a few. Poet, playwright Ntozake Shange and Mickey Davidson have had an artistic relationship that spanned over 30 years. Several collaborators include the 20th anniversary production of For Colored Girls Who Have Considered Suicide When the Rainbow Is Enough. It was produced by New Federal Theater and directed by Miss Shange. And they also worked together on A Sense of Breath at the Whitney Museum at Philip Morris. Davidson is the primary choreographer for her companies, Mickey D and Friends and the Savoy Swings. She has been teaching American history through dance for over 40 years in educational and community institutions, such as the College of Old Westbury, University of Illinois, Wesleyan University, and Goddard Riverside Community Center. Mickey Davidson. Next, we have Diane Harvey. Diane Harvey is a performing artist and a founding member and assistant to director Abdel Arsalam of Forces of Nature Dance Theater Company and dance educator at both Princeton and Hofstra University. Performances with the concert dance companies of Elio Pomare, Joan Miller, George Faison, Otis Salid, and I don't want to butcher his name, Jalone Vieira, prepared her for a career on and off Broadway and in film, which ultimately paved the way for an inspirational collaborative relationship with Ntozake Shanghai. An original cast member of Spell No. 7 and Boogie Woogie Landscapes, choreographer for Hydraulics Fat Like Mean and Lavender Lizards, Lilac Landmines, Layla's Dream. She believes the most thrilling aspects of her connection to Zaki happen when sharing time and space in performance together, often best realized in unusual settings. She's grateful and she says Ashe. Dr. Halifu Osomare has been involved with dance and Black popular culture internationally for over 40 years as a dancer, choreographer, teacher, administrator, and scholar. She is Professor Emerita of African American and African Studies at UC Davis and has written 2 books on global hip hop. She published her memoir, Dancing in Blackness, in 2018, which contains San Francisco Bay Area cultural and arts history, including her work with Ntozake Shanghai, directing and choreographing her plays and improvising to her poetry. Osamare has taught dance and humanities courses throughout the United States, Europe, Africa, Hawaii, and the Caribbean. As an artist and dance activist, Dr. Osamare was a soloist with the Rod Rogers Dance Company in New York in the 70s and became the founder of Oakland's first multi-ethnic dance institution, Everybody's Creative Arts Center. She is the former co-director of the Institute and a certified instructor for Dunham Technique certification that continues the legacy of dancer anthropologist Catherine Dunham, Dr. Osamare. Diane Mcintyre, dancer, choreographer, whose Harlem-based company Sounds in Motion was founded in 1972, creates works for concert dance, Broadway, and regional theater. Screen credits include Beloved and Miss Evers Boys, Emmy Award mention. Among her honors are a Doris Duke Artist Award, a Guggenheim Fellowship, 2 honorary degrees, and numerous grants. Choreography with Ntozake Shanghai includes Spell No. 7, Boogie Woogie Landscapes, Mouths, Riding the Moon in Texas. It hasn't always been this way. Why I Had to Dance, Lost in Language and Sound, and more. Working with Diane Mack, said Ms. Shanghai, allowed my words to become movement, breath, angles, leaps, and rhythm without my having said more than 2 things. Diane Mcintyre. David Lois Ferraron is a recipient of the prestigious MAP Fund grant. Sorry, everybody, technical difficulties here. Let's start again. David Lois Ferraron is a recipient of the prestigious MAP Fund grant. She received a Bessie Award for her performance in The Skeleton Architecture, or The Future of Our Worlds, and was named among 7 up-and-coming Black dance artists who should be on your radar. by Dance Magazine. Ferraron is a critically acclaimed choreographer, dancer, and educator born in Jamaica and raised in the Bronx. She danced with Stephen Petronio from 2005 to 2017 and founded David Lois Ferraron Dance in 2016 with the mission to push artistic and social boundaries. Her choreography, said to reflect a tenacious virtuosity, has been presented nationally and internationally, including at renowned venues such as the Joyce Theater and the Metropolitan Museum of Art. And ladies and gentlemen, David Lois Ferraron. I'm going to read Otis Salid's bio. He was scheduled to be with us, but he's under the weather. So I'm going to just read his quick bio. Otis Salid is a director, choreographer, and a producer whose accomplishments in theater, television, and film are known throughout the entertainment industry. After graduating from Juilliard, he worked as an actor and dancer for numerous Broadway shows and dance companies before launching his production company, Creative Otis Inc. As a choreographer and director, he has worked on productions and films such as Do the Right Thing, School Days, Malcolm X, Living Single, Sister Act, Debbie Allen's Fame, and the 69th Academy Awards, and of course, Mariah Carey's All I Want for Christmas Is You, which was at the Beacon Theater. He is also the recipient of numerous awards, including several Tony Award nominations, an MTV Music Video Award, and a Grammy Award. So everyone, let's catch our collective breaths, because the heavyweights in this room, in this Zoom room, is just amazing. I hope this is being recorded, because now this is Black history. Wow. I don't know where to begin. Halifu is, first of all, it's good to see everybody. It's good to see everyone. Let me get everybody to unmute just a little bit, because I want this to be a nice, friendly exchange and conversation. Halifu.
Yes, ma'am.
Tell us about the Ntozake you knew for colored girls when she lived out in California. I just love this story.
Well, I'm happy to begin, and thank you for having me, Renee. First, I'd like to say that Ntozake was one of my best friends. We met each other in our 20s and our early 20s. So we were fast, you know, checking out life. We were moving out there in the San Francisco, Oakland Bay Area. She had moved up from Southern California, where she was getting her master's at the University of Southern California in American Studies. And she got enamored with the Black arts movement in the Bay Area. And she also really got involved with the political activism that was going on. You know, we are the home of the Black Panthers.
Right.
This is where Black studies started at San Francisco State University and then spread across the country as a whole new wave in academia. Mm-hmm. So, you know, the Bay Area has always been known for both political and cultural and artistic maverick activities.
Yeah.
And Ntozake was definitely a part of that in the 70s in the San Francisco, Oakland Bay Area. She became very close with me, and she is responsible for my having an African name that a lot of people who don't know me begin to mutilate when they try to pronounce it. She's the one who looked at me and say, "You are Halifu Osamare."
Okay.
And that was a gift that obviously I have received, and it actually pronounced my destiny, because that's what African naming is all about. Mm-hmm. She had received her African name from 2 South African brothers whom she had met, mm-hmm. and she talks about that in the book. She was always a unique, creative artist who was trying to stretch the boundaries. She was obviously always writing poetry and short stories at that time. And she decided she wanted to do a radio show. Mm-hmm. And we had a public community-owned radio station called KPOO, KPOO. Still exists today. Mm-hmm. You can Google it and check it out. And they were giving people who wanted to do shows some time on the air. She put together a show that really showed the Bay Area who she was. Mm-hmm. The original Aboriginal dancing girl. So you see in the title of her radio show, she's always claiming herself as a dancer, yeah, as well as a writer. Yeah. And she would play R&B, soul, Latin, salsa, reggae. She always saw the idea of Blackness as an international affair, that it was something that was a part of the African diaspora. Yeah. And so she represented that. You can see that in her poems when she writes in Spanish and French and English, etc. So she was always exemplifying that. However, she was a little bit shy still as a performer beyond reading her poetry. Mm-hmm. And so I like to take credit for the fact that some of the productions that I was in when she was taking my dance classes, I put her in leading roles. Mm-hmm. that really began to bring her out as a performer on stage as well. Right. And she performed in my Evolution of Black Dance. Mm-hmm. And she also performed in my one and only play called For Women, Images of the Black Woman in Monologue, Song, and Dance. Mm-hmm. And that really brought her out as she began to see how movement and the word that she was writing could have some kind of a unique mix. Mm-hmm. And I like to feel that her idea for the choreo poem actually started in California, in the Bay Area, because she was writing those poems in the very beginning of her career in the mid 70s, before she went back to the East Coast. And Paula Moss, the mm-hmm. original choreographer for the Broadway production of For Color Girls, and I were one of the first dancers to dance to some of those poems in her public readings. So, you know, that's just a kind of summary of the vitality that we had in the 70s in the Black arts movement in California, in Northern California, right. and how Zaki played a major role in that gave her the inspiration to write the poems of For Color Girls that then she took back to the East Coast and made theater history.
And I remember you told us once that sometimes she would call you at 2 or 3 in the morning and read those poems.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. You know, so I heard many of those poems in the middle of the night when I was half asleep, and she insisted that I had to wake up and listen to these poems. So, you know, like I said, we're very close. We go back, and I don't wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning for anybody.
I hear you.
So, you know, we had a relationship throughout our lives together, and I did a actual joint book reading with her 5 months, as you know, yes. 5 months before she passed, at Hunter College in New York in May of 2018, where her last book of poetry, Wild Beauty, and my Dancing in Blackness, we co-read together. And I was so glad to have that last experience with her. Of course, I still have experiences with her because I believe in the ancestral communication. Amen. So we're always communicating.
Ashe, that is so true. Diane Mcintyre, there is an audition in the book where Zaki talks about auditioning for your dance company. I want to hear about that audition from your perspective. I know she talks about it, but tell us how it was having Ntozake Shanghai audition for your dance company. Or she wasn't Ntozake Shanghai, the one we know at that point. Is that correct?
That is correct. Okay, so now this is the next part of the story that Halifu spoke about.
Yay.
So from what I understand, Paula Moss and Intozaki Shanghai drove across country to New York City to pursue dance, theater, and to continue with Intozaki's work in her choreo poem.
Mhm.
Now, she came to an audition that I had. I had a dance company, Sounds in Motion.
Mhm.
I'm calling it the New Sounds in Motion. And our first studio was a borrowed space that we borrowed from the Harlem Interfaith Ministerial Association. It was on 125th Street in Harlem between Lenox Avenue and Park.
Mhm.
Lexington, between Lexington and Park, right, Mickey? Nikki?
Yeah.
Okay, between Lexington.
It was the east side.
It was on the east side, which Intozaki references in her recalling that particular day. It was probably not a day; it was nighttime. That was the problem. Okay, so she's trying to look for this studio. The thing is, she shares the story. However, I don't remember it from her point of view. Why? Because there might have been 50 people at that audition.
Right, right.
So there were many people coming to audition to be in the company, to be students with the company, to be scholarship students. We were really what was the hot place to be in that time. And so people came from all over the New York area and also from out of town.
Mhm.
She'd heard this was the place to go. So the thing that's funny that she says about coming, she's trying to find the place. She's looking for some like slick dance studio, Sounds in Motion or something like that, or Diane Mcintyre studio. The thing is that what I haven't told in previous panel discussions is that this place owned by the Ministerial Interfaith Association was a top floor. I think it was on the fourth floor of this particular building. Right underneath that floor was a methadone program.
Yeah.
So when you hear her saying, I was walking up the stairs past these people nodding out who were high.
Mhm.
That's why. That's what we came by in order. So she was there and she was part of that whole group of many people, but it narrowed down, and she became one of the people who was going to be part of that Sounds in Motion experience. And for those who read the book, you'll see what her version was. But what I would like to say is that when she came and became a dancer, a student, a part of Sounds in Motion, that was the name of our company, means dance is moving music. When she became part of that, she gave it her all. She was dancing with everything that she had. She had come out from Halifu and Raymond Sawyer, the other people she'd worked with in California. She was a dancer to her soul. That's how I knew her. And I communicated with her only by giving her notes.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yes, you can go higher, Zaki. You can go higher.
Mhm.
Yeah, stretch,
Mhm.
leap. And she went not only the leap and higher, she went beyond the beyond. She was fabulous. She loved to dance. So when somebody during that particular period, while she was still taking classes, somebody showed me some of her poetry in the form of almost a script.
Mhm.
What? I said, little Zaki wrote this.
Ooh.
Zaki. I mean, I'm thinking her little Zaki. I'm like, what? She's a dancer. And the words were just flying off the page in the same way that she would fly across the room in her dancing. words were unique. Stories were unique. I was really floored, astounded, and overjoyed. I saw her always first as a dancer,
Mhm.
and then I knew her as a writer. We two continued choreography and choreography, poetry, relationships over many years, and we even had the plans for those coming up that
Right.
were in the future that she was planning for the years to come.
Yeah.
So that was Aki. And the other thing that I share sometimes is that after For Colored Girl was a big success, and she was always in the first version of her plays,
Yeah.
choreo poems, and then she would take herself out and enjoy it and go, because she's working on the next thing.
Right.
She's working. Okay, you all like For Colored Girls. I've got some more. I've got more and more and more and more.
Oh yes.
More. So the thing is, after she that was a success, didn't she just come right back to class?
Yeah.
Right back to Sounds in Motion. She's
Yeah.
always dancing, always studying.
Mm-hmm.
You will find out in the book, those who haven't read it yet, she was always in the dance world.
Yes. Now, Mickey.
Yes. I'm here.
Yeah, Mickey, you were at that audition too, right?
Yes, I was.
So now, what was that like, being at that same audition, and what was it like to work with her?
Well, that audition, as Diane said, people were coming from everywhere because it was the thing. She had the reputation for working with jazz musicians, and also so people who had an inclination towards live music, improvisation. She was the place to be. I had heard about Diane before I actually finished college. So going there at that time, I had a son with no babysitter. So me and the son had to go, and that caught Zaki's eye. And I think just us kind of giving each other that extra support eased the nerves, because everybody had to do their best. That was the only way you were going to be recognized. And your best was about energy, power, and intent. And you might say technique was secondary. So that if you had the fire, that's what was more important at the time. And over time you worked on your technique. But to tell the story with the full energy, that, that was called for. Have, as they say, you had to have some balls, man. You couldn't be afraid. It wasn't about being afraid. So that's what kind of drew us together. The other thing that drew Zaki and I together in terms of collaboration, we were both seen. And during that time, there was what they called the loft era.
Right.
It was the real estate in New York at that time. And musicians, visual artists, a lot of people were getting spaces, these big spaces, to be able to live and produce. And that meant if you went to a music concert, you walk in and they knew you were a dancer, and they said, "You're going to sit in?" So we could sit in just like a musician.
Okay.
Zaki could read her poetry like a musician.
Right.
And so that level of improvisation kind of drew us together. Some of the places were like Studio Rigby with Sam Rivers, and Ladies Fort, Jolie Wilson's place, Ali's Ali, Rashid Ali, and La Mama's. Elaine Stewart had several buildings, abandoned buildings around Alphabet City that we just go in there and start making art, and create a platform. you know. So those are the kinds of things that drew Zaki and I. And she'll tell you in the book that because Colored Girls, a lot of people had heard those poems.
Right.
We focused on things that she hadn't done.
Okay.
New poems,
Mhm.
experimenting with the characters in the poems,
Right.
with the different musicians, how they interpret the characters of the poems.
Mhm.
And she really created a, you might say, her voice as an instrument. So when she said her poetry, it was like hearing a extra melodic sound inside of the larger sound with the musicians. So we both kind of grew out of that,
Right.
and it helped her formulate. So regional theater, we would then take these experiences of hanging out
Mhm.
and put them into places like Freedom Theater in
Right.
Philadelphia, or Rights and Reason up in
Mhm.
Brown.
Mhm.
And as Diane talked about, as she got familiar with her pieces, she could step out and then let somebody else take it and be
Yeah.
able to direct them. So in most of our collaborations, she was the director, I was the choreographer, and we work with musicians like Billy Bain,
Mhm.
Spaceman Patterson,
Yeah.
Oliver Lake, David Murray. And so it was to have everybody do their best at their highest. So that meant if a musician was going to scream, baby, we was all screaming with our bodies. She could scream with her voice, but then she could also make movements that created that scream so she wouldn't ruin her voice.
Yeah.
So all of that, those are things that we kind of lived through together.
Yes, yes, yes. Now, Diane Harvey, I do want to address you with this question. There are a few people that there are no personal profiles of. Camille is one, and you're one, and David Lois. And I just want to make certain the audience understands this. We didn't get to get this done because she transitioned before she could get that part of the book done. Um, so, with that said, Diane Harvey, I have your interview in the book, but there's no profile. So I want to hear your story about how you two met.
Oh, this is a great story. And actually, Diane McIntyre gave me the real scoop on how I was added to the Spell Number Seven, the original cast of Spell Seven. So I really didn't know. I knew who Zaki was, but I didn't know her personally. I was living in the Elio Pomare world, the world of performance. I was not necessarily a creative, but my creativity was seen in the act of performing for other choreographers. And I was quite happy doing that. I was quite fulfilled. So I got the phone call. Come, we'd like you to do Spell Number Seven. Entazaki Shanghai is inviting you. And I was flabbergasted. I had no idea how she even knew who I was, or, I wasn't sure that our worlds were crisscrossing.
Right.
Um, but that was not the case because, as Miss McIntyre made very clear to me, that I was one of Zaki's favorite dancers.
Yes. Yeah.
So that humbled me, actually, when I found out a month ago.
Yes.
You're
She
right.
never knew all these
I
years.
never knew. I never knew.
Wow.
I just was like, okay, I got to do this gig. As a performing artist, as Zaki would write poems and be moving on to the next one, that's how I was living my life. Okay,
Right.
what's the next thing that I'm
Mhm.
going to perform?
Right.
So I was really blessed to be an original member of Spell Seven, where I got to work with Zaki as writer and performer. I got to watch her every night that she chose to, for the length of time that she chose to stay in the production. And then all of the phenomenal actors and dancers that were hired. Mary Alice,
Mhm.
Lori Carlos, Ibaye.
Yeah.
Sam Jackson. Eventually, Latanya came in and replaced
Tanya.
me, right? I think.
She replaced Zaki.
Right.
Okay.
Avery Brooks.
Avery Brooks. So there was
Wow.
you.
And guess who Avery's understudy was?
Ooh.
Who was that?
Sam Jackson.
Sam. Okay, right. When
Wow.
Avery left. Right.
Wow.
So how about that? So,
Wow.
but I think for me, the crowning glory of that moment was when Diane choreographed this amazing solo in the opening to Avery's voice.
Mm-hmm.
My God. So that voice was the music.
Right.
Those words were the melodies. And little by little, I was introduced to the idea of, yes, you have this structure, you have to do this choreography
Right.
in these ways. But if Avery stretches the syllable a tenth of a degree of a second, then what are you going to do?
Okay.
So now I'm like, okay, he went longer. Oh shoot, then that means I either have to go with him or I have to switch and move to the next thing. So, and this is all coming to me like right now. So
Okay.
little by little, and I think Zaki was watching this process with me, knowing my background and knowing that I think she could be stretched a little. And so little by little, the idea of improvisation was being planted in me. When she invited me to do a project with her where she was going to read and I would interpret it, I was like, yes, on the moon, yes, with you, oh, yes, okay, good, okay, so what are we doing?
Yeah.
And then she said, oh, I don't know. Okay, well, we got 2 weeks. Okay, so make sure you let me know what you're doing. So no, it didn't happen until we got on the plane to go to Kansas City Library.
Okay.
So I'm in the deep panic now because I need structure. I need structure. We need to know what we are doing. I need to know when you want me to come in. What do you want me? No, she said, I don't know. I'm gonna. She had a stack of poems that must have been like this. And she said, well, I don't know. Choose a poem. Choose your poems. I said, oh, really? Okay. Okay, so I chose these poems that I thought I could interpret. Went to bed, slept with them, made plans.
Plans.
Forget the plans. Forget the plans. It was the most horrible experience of my, well, it was a horrible experience for me because I was frustrated with myself,
Right.
not having had the plan in mind. But what I realized later was I wasn't listening to her.
Exactly.
And so she never criticized. There was never any feedback because I think she knew that I was really processing all of it. And so the next couple of times I started to relax and remember what I had done during spell 7. So that started bringing me into the fold of learning how to listen and respond to her honestly, using all the technique and all the goodies that I carry with me. And so we just had an amazing creative relationship, and I'm so grateful to be on this panel and share my process with her and with the care and gentleness that she brought me along.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Just go ahead, Mickey.
I like to add to that because as Diane said, she never criticized, but how she used our two different processes and concepts in with the same material.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
She had a week at New Eurekan.
Uh-huh.
And so she broke the week up, part of the time with me and part of the time with Diane. But then she hired one extra dancer to do the whole week.
Yep.
Dixon.
Shireen.
Yes. And so the thing was, she knew that I was going to just kind of be kind of open with Shireen and say, all right, here, there. And Diane had plans. And so when I asked Shireen, I was like, well, how was the experience? She's like, it was the same stuff, but very different. Different. And that's what, you know, and for Zaki to be a whole week with the same material, that's how she could get her thing off.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Things
Yeah.
going to happen on each day with the different people. And in a sense, it was a training for Shireen.
Yeah.
Be able to be flexible. And that was something I was actually looking forward to doing more of with
Yeah.
material.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One
Yeah,
thing
we
I'll
were-
say about,
before she transitioned, we were supposed to actually do something at the Apollo. So I was like, yeah, I'm ready.
Yes.
Now. I got you.
Yeah. Go ahead, Diane. Mac, go ahead.
one thing I was gonna say is that Woody King Jr. New Federal Theater
Mhm.
Was the original producer
Mhm.
for Colored Girls in New York City. He had a retrospective celebration of Intizaki's work. I believe it was in 2007.
Mhm.
And at that time, we did a version of It Hasn't Always Been This Way. And we had several performers, and Shireen was in it. So all the four performers all danced. Three of them they all had to dance and they all had to speak.
Okay.
It wasn't so broken up. They all had to speak. And the thing is that Shireen, of course, she was a dancer. The thing is that she was speaking. She had whole big poems that she was speaking, sometimes dancing at the same time.
Mhm.
Thing is that here she's a dancer, and for Intizaki and Zaki's mother, Shireen was their favorite performer.
Okay.
And she was the one she wasn't a trained actor, but she had the dance in her. So
Okay.
her words were dancing.
Okay.
It was, I shouldn't say she was their favorite performer, but they liked her a lot. I'll say it.
Yeah. Speak your truth. Speak your truth.
They did. All of them.
Yeah.
Did. All of
I
them.
have just one thing to add.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
And that is that Zaki, she really believed in improvisation.
Definitely.
You know, improvisation was at the core of her whole aesthetic,
Mhm.
with musicians, with other poets, obviously with dancers. And, you know, it's something to hear these stories, because those who hadn't had the focus on improvisation, like Diane Harvey, you know, it's interesting to hear how she, as a poet and a dancer, helped her to come along and discover that process. Whereas with me, that's what I was all about in the beginning.
Yeah.
I was all about improvisation. All she had to do was just start speaking, and I would go for it.
Right. Right.
But the last thing I want to say about this is that within the Black aesthetic,
Mhm.
improvisation is choreography.
Right.
Improvisation is choreography, and if we understand that, then we can trust it and go with it. With all the things that we've ever learned, we go with that process, and we will be choreographing in the moment.
Yeah,
Mhm.
most definitely. Well, let me get David Lois in here for just a moment, because all of the stories that you all are telling, some of them I've heard, some of them I haven't. And it was just amazing when I would sit there and listen to her tell those stories and I was typing. Sometimes I would be so busy listening to her tell the story because she could just paint those pictures with her words. I would forget to type. So I had to start recording everything that she said, and that's how I was able to help with the book. Now, in David Lois's case, I was with Ntozake in New York when we met David Lois. But David, tell us how that experience was like when you met her and when we interviewed you that time.
It was very much so surreal.
Yeah.
It was definitely surreal, and even sitting here among such greatness is also super surreal. And it kind of brings me this kind of crazy joy, just that this book came out of is in existence, just because I think, was it 2 years ago, Diane? I was like, we need to get dance history from 1980 to now. Like, we need this now. And I was like, please meet me. I was recording her. I was trying to get all of the things. That project is still happening, but just to see that we have, you know, this book as a jumping off a point, and it was just kind of like, oh my God, thank you. It is definitely, it was just surreal. And as I mentioned before, a little bit of imposter syndrome starts to set in, like, oh, I don't deserve to be here. Like, why am I here? Yes, I have these qualifications that on a resume, you know, looks good, right? But ultimately speaking, to have the legacy and the history behind me as such I don't have that yet, right? I'm a very young artist. I'm still getting my feet wet, and I can just completely understand what you were talking about, Diane, in terms of coming around to what does improvisation mean to me. You know, so I started my journey unpacking and kind of unlearning a lot of the things that dance training kinds of blocks you to see in terms of, you know, possibilities and what is improvisation and all of those things. And so a lot of what I talked about in that hotel room was about the skeleton architecture experience that just, you know, blew my mind. It was the first time I had ever been with all Black, gender nonconforming and female identifying artists improvising, you know, for the first time in my life, where so much of my dance life up until that point, in 2016, had been about code switching, you know, getting into the white space and then behaving in a way that doesn't make them uncomfortable to a certain extent. And then, you know, my own curated space once I started choreographing, feeling safe to be free there. And then the mixture of the two coming to a head during that performance of, you know, okay, well, let me adorn the David Lois Ferraron that the dance world knows. And then how within 5 seconds, Charmaine, you know, did something crazy, Charmaine Warren. And I was like, oh, what am I doing? Like the whole, my full self was invited into that space. And so the opportunity to talk about that, the opportunity to be with her and talk about what, you know, feels to me as so insignificant in the spectrum of Black dance history. You know, I still thank my lucky stars in terms of just being able to be here among such greatness.
Such greatness. Well, now that you've brought up the subject of the book, I want to ask each of you, why is this book important? Why here? Why now? But before I jump into that, I would be remiss if I didn't pay tribute to some of the people who we didn't get a chance to do their profiles and mention them in this book, because this book was initially to be much bigger. But as we all know, our dear Zaki transitioned before we could finish a lot of it. So this is in the afterword for those of you who are on Facebook. She made her transition before we were able to meet with and ultimately include in the book such greats as George Faison, Jawale Willa-Jo Zolar, Bill T. Jones, Amani A. Payne, Stan Z. Peterson, Chuck Davis, Tito Stompera, Okwe, Devon Doan, Laura Mil Machado, and Anna Glass, and others such as Camille Brown, David Lois Ferraron, and Diane Harvey were interviewed, but their personal portraits of them remain incomplete. And I just wanted to take a moment to give those people a shout out and some love, because we were scheduled to go up and watch, I think it was Devon. We were scheduled to go on a trip the weekend, or right after she passed away. It was like the next weekend. So this book, Dance We Do, this is my little work copy. As we see, I got dog ears and little notes everywhere. Why is this book in the world of dance, in the world of Black dance, in the world of academia, just in the world of Black culture? Why is this book so important? I'll start with you, Diane Mac. Why is this so important?
Okay, I'm glad you're starting with me because I wanted to insert something else.
Please.
I want to insert the fact that Otis Salid wasn't able to be here this evening.
Yeah.
And you read his beautiful bio.
Yes.
Is what I want you to know, and why Ntozake was so enamored with his work and just him in general, was that we of a certain generation knew Otis in New York City, in New York City as a brilliant performer and amazing choreographer. So he was in the Broadway, he was a lot of these people who you know, who have been doing very strong work in the industry or in what we call the more Broadway and TV and film and all like that, they will all start as modern dancers, okay? Your basic modern dancers. We were all part of the same community. Otis we were part of his community. So he was in the Wiz with you, all right?
Yeah, yes. And he also had his own company called the New Art Ensemble.
Yes. And on Monday nights,
yes,
company, he was in the Wiz.
Yes, we were.
And on Monday evenings, he did his choreography and others' choreography on 125th Street near 8th Avenue, where he had that law space.
Yep.
And he continued his creative work on and on. And we were just gigantic fans of Otis. When you hear Zaki writing about him, it was like, oh, Otis Salid, like that, right? Oh, okay. Otis Salid, right? That's how we felt about him, just as a person and also creative. And when he went on to worked a lot with Debbie Allen, and he calls her his mentor in the book. His mentor as connected with
the commercial world.
For film, choreography for film. The thing is, over the years, I always watched the credits at the end of all those things they did, because often people overlook the fact that Otis had choreographed a whole bunch of those things. Name would be there at the end. I said, I knew Otis did that. His original choreography was so unique, just so unique. And if he had been here, I was going to talk to him about some piece he did where he had an all gold suit on.
Oh, okay.
No, there were times, because we were both in the Wiz together at the same time, and working in the New Art Ensemble with Shirley Black Brown and Frances Morgan and Kamal, who was also in the Wiz. So we would take and invite dancers from the Wiz who were technically brilliant, amazing. I even think Hinton did something with us at one point.
Hinton Battle, people.
Yes, Hinton Battle. Yes. One of the original Scarecrows, a brilliant, brilliant artist. But we would do the show, 8 shows a week, and be rehearsing for our productions at night, in the day, and do the show at night and do a presentation. What were they? Studio showings.
On Mondays.
On Monday nights, yes. That was the life. That was the balance that that I was talking about in the Black Dance Stories was we all needed to be doing our concert and to also get that paycheck.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that is one reason why this book is so important. Okay.
Most definitely. Thank you. Definitely. Halifu, my question is, what should we be doing now? You once said that by now our dear sister Zaki would have had some social justice pieces done by now. And she did do a piece about the Pulse shooting. And I remember when she wrote it because she was having trouble with her hands, but she bared that pain and she wrote it. And she called me and she said, oh, I just wrote my first poem. And I was driving and I pulled over to the side of the highway and we started crying on the phone together because I was just so happy that she had accomplished that, because she wasn't the biggest fan of Dragon 13. It's a voice, talk to text program. She said writing for her was, you needed to sweat when you wrote. And I know that piece about the Pulse meant a lot to her. So Halifu, what should we be doing now in the spirit of Ntozake Shange?
Well, just doing what we feel that is important, that is reflective of who we are right now and what our times are about. I mean, we all know we're in a crisis. We're in major crisis on several levels. We're obviously in a health crisis. The world has changed and stopped as we know it. We're obviously in a racial justice crisis, and not just in the United States, all over the world. So I feel like we're in a time that is in major transition. And it's not just the United States. It's a cosmic thing that's going on. And so artists are the ones that are gonna have to let it come out, let it come through us about what we see as a vision for the future. I think we need to be talking about what needs to change right now, but that should lead us into what do we envision as who we could be, who we could really be, especially if we were allowed to be fully who we were. Like Dava was saying, that moment when she decided to switch and let her full self come out. Before we even have to think about allowing that to happen, it should be natural. We need to be in a space where it shouldn't even be a question that you should be who you are. And that obviously all lives matter. And as I said on a previous panel, all lives can't matter until Black lives matter, because we are the template for oppression in the entire world.
Speak it.
Yeah.
So, we need to just be speaking our truth, as Zaki would be doing. And in terms of this particular book, Zaki is one of us. She's an insider writing about who inspired her as dancers. So I feel like we as Black dancers need to be writing more of our own stories. We need to be telling more of our own stories. And that's why I hold workshops about writing Black dance memoir, like I have done. Because our field is very arrested. Dance in general is very arrested. It is just now, the dance world as we know it, both commercial and concert, is just waking up to the fact that they have ignored us most of our lives on a major level. I mean, yes, we've gotten a little bit of recognition here and there, but do you know that Dance Magazine is having, right now, as we're doing this, is having its 63rd annual magazine award. And before now, you could count on basically one, maybe two hands, the Black artists who were really recognized by our major magazine. Catherine Dunham, Alvin Ailey, Judith Jamison, is only a few.
Yeah.
Okay, and now they're doing a special award ceremony for 8 artists that span several generations.
All Black.
All black artists.
They're trying to make up for it.
Wow.
Right.
Okay.
That's showing you the guilt that is
Mhm.
that is happening in the field of dance right now, that they're finally realizing that, in fact, they have not recognized some of its major talent and major creators who have transformed this art form we call dance.
Yeah.
So we need to be writing our own stories, and this book is, as Deborah was saying, is a beginning, but it should be a stepping off point
Exactly.
for artists who know your own stories. We all know each other's stories. We need to be writing those stories, documenting those stories, letting the world know who we are.
Yeah. Well, I was involved in an oral history project through the Lincoln Center, and so some of that practice can also accompany writing the books about our lives. But this was interesting between Dava and I. We sat, I don't know, what, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and she was just feeding from the information that I was sharing with her about the lineages that I'm aware of. I'll just say one thing about the institutions of higher learning. So I am teaching at Princeton University. There was one colleague of mine who is getting ready to start a course on the oral history of a particular artist, dancers. And so she was recommending your book, Halifu. She was recommending Misty Copeland. She was recommending the other icons. And so I sent to her in a chat, I said, well, do you know about DanceWeDo? It will give you this broader spectrum of artists that you can focus on and alert people to. And she said, I've never heard of it. And I was gagging. So, so that is one thing, that is one arena into the dance communities of the institutions that this information must be disseminated. It has got to get out. The HBCUs have to have it. It's got to get out so that, as you said, this trickle out effect can really start to heal the young artists who they're clueless to their own history.
Amen.
You know?
And if you don't know your history, somebody will take your history, package it up, and resell it to you.
Right.
Right. Mickey, final question before we go to the audience for questions. The book has a glossary, and it was a labor of love. And thanks to Mickey, thanks to Halifu, and thanks to Diane Mack for helping me pull that together. Why a glossary? Why did we need a glossary in this little gem?
Well, I think it addresses what these three ladies have talked about, making sure we talk about the dialogue and the language of our communities and being able to decipher them. I call it dialect, so that when you talk about planting, like the old tap dancers talk about planting. You got to plant it, baby. And what that really means is equalize your weight. But they didn't live in that technical European format. So having the glossary, when she talks about an ace in a hole. When I did my first ace in a hole, they didn't call it Lindy Hop. They didn't call it swing. They called it dancing. And I was taken up. Diane, I think McIntyre mentions it. She grew up doing things, and it wasn't until later on when she was asked to choreograph, all of those memories, all of those experiences came back out. And those are things that a lot of young people don't get, or people of color who are being trained more in a European process don't get, that you might say the dialect or the vernacular language of our art form as it has been able to carry on. So But I also see the glossary being very accessible to people who are non-dancers, because there's so much movement and reference to movement that it gives a non-dancer, without getting too technical, a foundation and the words to kind of help them imagine what this movement and what the air of this movement might be about. You know, as we're waiting for the country and the world to catch up with us, Ozzie Davis mentioned to me one time that we work on so many different levels. So as some people are trying to bust open the upper educational system to recognize, we also have to work in our communities. And I very much identify with Halifu when she talked about those early morning school programs. By me being a mother of a kid, I couldn't travel but so much. But I really found working and doing these school programs and introducing the culture and the music on a very basic level is just as important as trying to get some other people who have not recognized us to recognize us. We have to take care of our own on so, and we as a complex people, each and every one of us, as Ms. Halifu said, we do what we do, and collectively we will then cover many more bases than trying to do something one way, because our experiences in this country is not one way. You danced a certain way if you lived in the Midwest. You might have danced in a certain way when you were on the East Coast. The importance of the Pullman porters creating and transforming and transitioning movement. You know, I always make that joke of, you know, a Pullman porter who might not have been a good dancer. Then he gets up to Detroit and he go to a club and he starts doing his movement and be just as wrong or just as different. And then they say, "Ooh, what is that?" Then he gives it a name, you know? Yeah. And so just our oral traditions and getting those stories, and people need to talk to the people in your home and in your family. So that everybody has a story, you know. So before the people in your family leave out, ask them what it was like. You know, I would go and tell the kids, go home and whoever take care of you, ask them how they danced. And so in terms of creating conversation and exchange and that intergenerational knowledge and wisdom, dance and the arts opens that up. So that glossary gives us a platform outside of the ordinary, right? And how we can approach our culture, how we can transmit it, and how we can then expand with it. We're not one-dimensional. So it's like, for me, I don't talk about dance without talking about music.
That's it.
And you talk about music and dance, then you have to talk about the content, the situation, and you could be almost anywhere. And that's the thing that Zaki loved. And she never gave up her connection with community. So that even as she's going to Broadway and she's doing that, she'd find her way to Oakland or to Philadelphia or to Jersey, into those regional theaters that really allowed her to work things through and to connect with the people. So that's all of those reasons is why I think that glossary really gives us a platform for moving forward.
Yeah. Friends, I could sit here and listen to this all evening. I'm just enjoying every moment of this. But Michaela has joined us, which lets me know it's time for Q&A from our audience. So, Michaela, we're ready.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for that conversation. I'm so happy that you all were able to be here. I'm really humbled to have you all in our presence all at the same time, nonetheless. Also very humble to hear Ntozake Shange's name brought up so much, which means we're also in her presence as an ancestor. So bye-bye to Ntozake Shange. Just want to shout out the book one more time. This is DanceWeDo, a poet explores Black dance, which you can purchase at sankofa.com. As they mentioned, it has a glossary, which means, which we already knew, that this book is not just for dancers, it is for anyone who wants to know about Black culture, because we know Black culture and Black dance go hand in hand. And someone also mentioned in the comments, I like this comment, that artists, what did it say? Heal the trauma of our times. And that's very true. So if you have any questions that you'd like to ask the giants that we have here right now, this is like a once in a lifetime opportunity. If you have any questions, go ahead and type them in the chat. If you're on Facebook right now, you can type them in the chat on Facebook. I'm watching that as well. And also when you go to type, if you don't mind, we would like to see your face. We know this is a virtual event, but we are still a community. So we would like to see your face when you put the question.
And I do want to add this. This is the only, to date, the only book talk that we've done where this many dancers have been present. And we've done quite a few, but we've got almost all of our dancers that are still with us present on this. So these, if you want the questions answered about Black dance, ladies and gentlepersons, these are the heavyweights. Take advantage of this. Oh, looks like we have a question.
It's my sister from California, Leah.
Oh.
I see you.
Hey, I'll let her come on with her mic since it's
okay.
Go ahead.
You know, first off, all of you guys inspired and continue to inspire most dancers, period, beyond race, beyond culture, beyond everything. I mean, I can't even begin to say how thankful I am to have had the opportunity to be at Studio Museum, dancing between the pillars. I can't even begin to say how often watching Mickey, I thought, I wish I could do that. Or watching Diane, or just hanging out with Diane and hearing stories and wanting to be everywhere that she had been. And Diane Mcintyre, I'm so glad you talked about Otis, because I think people, that time when in New York, everybody was doing more than one thing. You know, Diane Harvey, you know, you said it, everybody, you worked on Broadway if you could, you did club acts, you did class, you did showings. I assisted Hinton, and often we would leave a Broadway show and go rehearse all night for a showing. And I think that it's so important that this book is a part of higher education's curriculum. There has to be a way to get it out there. In California, we finally have a dance credential. This book needs to be a part of what any student of dance, any student of the arts should be reading. Because it's so rich and so full of information that touches your soul and your spirit and helps you understand how important it is to continue to create and to continue to develop. So I hope that there is an opportunity to push this out there to the masses, and not just our dance community, because we kind of hold tight to stuff and it doesn't get out.
Wow.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Miss Leah. Even when Ntozake was disabled, she still was creating. She was still writing. She was still working. She was still dancing. She was still creating. And it was just an amazing thing to see. I mean, she was creating up until her final days. And it was just beautiful. So amen to that.
And we have a question. I'm going to ask both at the same time. They're similar. So Karen asked, how do we, any suggestions or recommendations for introducing Ntozake's work to elementary grade level students? Thank you. And a following question for Jamara, how can we proactively support Black dance? How can we continue to honor Shanghai's legacy? That's for anyone to answer.
I think the first, Zaki does have children's books.
Yes, she does.
One that I use quite a bit, I Live in Music.
Yeah, that's it. I Live in Music, right.
So, and those are things that are very easily transformed into movement, improvisational movement in terms of people's feelings. How does it feel? So just, she has written for all ages, from little children,
Yes.
grown folks. So the thing is, just find her material and look for her material under children's books. And that gives you a good foundation in allowing kids to grow up with her material and experience it. And I think that's,
Yeah.
Thank you.
And all those books have very beautiful illustrations.
Illustrations, yes, they do.
Yes.
They do.
That was Karen. Hi, Karen. I see you there.
Hi, thank you.
And then that second question was, how can we proactively support Black dance? How can we continue to honor Shanghai's legacy?
I would say, in terms of what I'm doing is making sure that the places and spaces that I am participating in, particularly as it relates to academia, making sure that the book is on the syllabus, making sure that it is going to be in the libraries of the institutions and things of that nature. I think it's super important to, you know, where you have power to influence, use that power to influence. And so that's definitely one of the ways I'm going to be making sure that it gets out there, because it's so necessary.
And I would second that, because if you have any a relationship to an educational institution, you usually there's a main librarian who's an acquisition librarian who you can contact that person and say, will you purchase this book for the library? Because we would like to use it in a course or whatever. So those are the kind of just basic logistical things that you can do to get it institutionalized.
And when we did our first panel discussion at Barnard, I sent a notice to all of the individuals who are the known Black dance scholars. And I told them, I hope they can come to this discussion and have this book. And also for them to know whatever they could do in their powers to have the book in all dance departments all over the country, because all these dance departments have their books around the country. So I wanted them to, I'm not just talking about the, it's not just in Black studies, every dance department around the country. So that was what I did. And I hope that they're able to move forward with that. It should just be there. It should be a must.
Absolutely.
To just be there.
We have another question. This one is on Facebook, so this person isn't here with us right now. This is Trisha. She says, I would like to know if there was any mention of Black belly dancers. The first American dancer to be officially invited to Egypt to dance was a Black woman. Nakisha is her name, and she is based in the Bay Area. Her story needs to be documented. They're asking about Black belly dancers.
well,
I think Renee would know.
Not in this book, there was no mention of Black belly dancers. No. And that was an interesting fact. I didn't know that myself. That's a real cool fact. But no, not to answer that question, there was no mention of Black belly dance in this book.
but I think that goes back to the thing that we all have to tell our stories.
That's it.
About this, she must share this with all of us, even if it's just a page. And with this social media, so yes, it is an important story.
It is.
So please share it.
Definitely.
Yes.
She could get a photograph of the sister, you know, and give a little one paragraph about about her accomplishments, and then people can can Google that, and it gets around. It's very
Yeah.
easy now in the age of social media to at least use that format, that platform to tell more of our stories.
Definitely.
And we have one comment. I'm just going to do a few more questions and then we can get to Renee. I know you had a special surprise for everyone. We'll get to that very shortly. This is not a question. This is a statement from Kelly. She says, I want to give a shout out to Halifu Osumare and all of the dance legends. I grew up in the Bay Area and was a beneficiary of that rich environment you described. My mother and I took classes at Everybody's Creative Dance Studio. Also, I want to thank Halifu for mentioning my father, Richard Navies, and the Black Studies Department in your book.
Wow.
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 Beautiful. Yeah, so Richard Navies was the head of the first Black Studies department in at high school, at Berkeley High School. Another first in terms of the kind of forward thinking that came out of the Bay Area. And he hired my production, which Intozaki was in, the Evolution of Black Dance. There was a lecture demonstration, talking about the history of Black dance from Africa up until whatever era that was. At that point, it was the 1970s. And he produced our production for the whole high school. And the kids loved it. And it was a part of the curriculum in that particular high school. And I went back and did further lecturing after that. A perfect example, all you need is one person who really has the consciousness, who wants to use Black dance as a way of inspiring the youth to think more about who they are.
One more, sorry, go ahead.
I see a question about, has any city offered a proclamation for Entezaki Shanghai Day? And I would just like to answer that. There may be other cities that have been, but in 2016, Entezaki came and spent a couple of weeks at Spelman College, where she was part of a production that I was doing. And the whole student body came and heard her speak along with Aku Kadogo. And it was really an amazing adventure having her at Spelman. And one day when we were doing a panel discussion, a person came up to the stage who was invited by the president, Mary Schmidt Campbell. He came up to the stage. He was from the city of Atlanta, and claimed that the next day was going to be called Entezaki Shanghai Day. And that was in the spring of 2016. It was quite a surprise to her. We have some photos of it. We have some photos of her life and her receiving that proclamation.
I know that in St. Louis, there is a strip that has stars on the sidewalk, and Chuck Berry, other important folks from St. Louis who grew up in St. Louis. So I know that she does have a star on the sidewalk, and that was a big to-do, and they brought her back to receive it, and all of her St. Louis family. It was a wonderful celebration. So that's one of the things I'm sure of.
And I'm certain that there's a mural of her in Trenton. Yeah, it's in Trenton. It's near the metro station, because we went to see it and we took photos with it. And I remember us leaving there, and we didn't go far, and we were near the subway station. And it was a big mural. It's blue. It's painted. I want to say it's under an overpass, kind of. She didn't know it was there. We were at Princeton doing a speaking engagement, and someone told her about it. So the next day we went and saw it, and she didn't know, nobody knew it was there. Wow. It was amazing.
Wow.
And that's Trenton, yeah.
And one thing I wanted to mention, that so delighted at certain events of being honored in a way that she'll be like tickled pink about being honored in a way that some people wouldn't even know about it in a widespread way. For instance, one day she called me and she said, one of my poems is going to be in the New York City subway station on the trains. I'm like, really? I said, oh, because I would go back and forth to New York. I'm in Cleveland, Ohio, but I would go to New York to work on different projects. Every time I get on the train, I'm looking for Zaki's poem. I'm looking for the poem.
Yeah.
One day I saw it. You too. One day I saw it. And I took a picture of it. Of Zaki's poem, and I sent it to her. Just thrilled. Oh my goodness. You saw it too, Diane?
Yeah, I saw it, and I did the same thing. I saw it. And I texted it to her. I said, look at where you are.
Yes. Yes, for everybody to see.
Yes, for everybody to see.
Yes.
Okay, Miss Renee, I think we can go to your surprise now.
Okay, let's see. Hold on, let me make certain I can find it. There we go. Share. All right, we're going to start up here at the top. Can you all see?
Yeah.
All right. This photo was in the opening. And then look at that photo, Diane.
Oh, wow.
And you all know who that other lady is. That's
Of course. Sonia Sanchez.
Yes.
Sanchez.
Yeah.
Where was that?
Yeah.
Where
This was at
New Jersey Performing Arts.
That's exactly
Kwanzaa.
where it was.
Your Kwanzaa?
Yeah, at NJ Pack.
Oh.
Yeah. And then there's this one.
Yes.
This is at New York.
New York.
This was New York, and this was a book signing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wild,
and this is
Wild Beauties.
Yeah, that's Spaceman back there in the back. Yeah. And then there's this one.
Oh.
That's me and Zaki. I don't have a clue where that is.
I think it might be in Oakland, Diane. Did you come to Oakland to visit her?
Yes, it's in Oakland.
And it was 2006. She had come back to live in Oakland. That's when, we kind of reconnected again. And I remember this because this is on Alice Street, where the Malunga Cascade Lord Center that I started is right down the street.
Yes.
And she ended up in this apartment on Alice Street back in 2006 when she wanted to come and live in the Bay Area again.
Yes.
But I didn't know that you had come to visit her.
Yeah, I visited her a couple of times there in Oakland. I thought it was in 2002, but maybe it was 2006.
No, it was 2006. I know. I have a picture in that same living room of us together.
Okay, wow. Yeah. Thank you for telling me. I don't know who took the picture.
I found it. I forget where I found it. Maybe it was in the archives. And Diane, this one was in Chicago.
Yes, we had gone to see a production of Regina Taylor at the Goodman Theater. And this was after the presentation. And Regina brought Zaki, Renee, myself. She flew us in and put us up in a hotel to be her guest at her opening.
Yes, yes, she did. She did. And then Halifu, I just threw this one in.
Well, I wouldn't call it throwing it in.
Yeah.
I would say it was meant to be there.
It was meant to be because I knew you had this photo and I wanted to surprise you with it because it was from a good angle.
Yeah.
This I mentioned in my introduction about the May 2018 at Hunter College in New York City, where we did the joint reading. And I had put this PowerPoint together. And I had done my presentation of my book, and then I ended with this slide, brought her up. She read from Wild Beauty, and had everybody just raptured with her poems. And then I came back up and we had a kind of Q&A together. And I'll never forget it.
Yes.
That was our last time together.
Yeah, I was going to say that, right. And then in honor of Camille, since she didn't join us, we went to a dance conference that Camille did. It was at Barnard. And afterward, we interviewed her. And I always like to keep this picture.
It's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the reason why Camille isn't with us today, she's one of those 8 Black dancers getting honored by Dance Magazine right now.
Yes.
Wow.
Along with Debbie Allen.
Right.
Okay. Yes.
And Alonzo King from the Bay Area.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And I wanted to end with this photo. Halifu, tell us who's on this photo.
Okay, so that's Zaki in the yellow leotard.
Mm-hmm.
That's me in the red leotard.
Mm-hmm.
And this is Aisha Khalil, one of the singers in Sweet Honey in the Rock. And this was a rehearsal for one of the scenes in my evolution of Black dance at Everybody's Creative Arts Center in Oakland, California in 1974.
Okay. Wow. What
Wow.
history.
Yeah, I mean, that's when we were young dancers kicking up some dust.
I hear you. Wow, that was some amazing history. Well, ladies, this has been an amazing evening. This has been wonderful.
And thank you, Renee, so much for gathering us together and having it at Sankofa Bookstore.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, Sankofa, for hosting this powerful and this historic event.
Thank you all for being here. We really, really appreciate it. Like I said before, you all are giants, and we're humble to have you all in the same space. And I want to give a shout out to Renee for reaching out to us first. Thank you so much, Renee, for having the mind to do this at a Black bookstore who appreciates and promotes the culture and art preservation. So thank you, Renee. Thank you, Ms. Davidson. Thank you, Ms. Osamare, Ms. McIntyre, Ms. Ferraron, Ms. Diane. I hope I got everyone. And thank you to the audience for being here again. This is Dance We Do, a poet explores Black dance. And you can purchase it at sankofa.com or at our brick and mortar store at 2714 Georgia Avenue Northwest. And if you like this event, we have many, many more coming like it. On Thursday, we'll have Hockey Mata Booty. And then this weekend, we're having our annual children's book fair. So please stay tuned. You can sign up to our newsletter at sankofa.com or follow us on any social media at Sankofa DC. So
I just got a text message from Zaki's manager.
Okay.
Visit her bookstore. I'm sorry. Visit her website. The Official Into Zaki Shanghai is the name of it. Visit. You can get a lot of background information, see neat photos, and it's a good way to keep up with other events like this that we're doing, because the book is out now. We'll be doing other things that you'll want to be a part of. So visit that website. Excuse me.
Yes, thank you for that. And I hope everyone has a great night. Enjoy, and we'll see you again. Good night, everyone.
Bye.
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 Good night. Good night.
Bye-bye.
Oh, wait. Don't go anywhere yet. My dancers, please. We need to document this moment with a picture. Yes, I'm going to take a picture. I'm going to do that.
Yeah, I did it already. So.
Oh, you did? See?
Yeah, but I'm gonna do it again because there we go.
1, 2,
okay,
3. I think I got it. All right, ladies.
That's it.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Love you all. Thank you.
Beautiful.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.